So, hello everybody. It's been a long time since I've done one of these videos where you can actually see my face and not me just holding up miniatures and going, oh my god, and did you see the shading that I did on this one? And the highlights really came out nicely on that one, didn't they? So it's, as you know, the start of a new term for me. So I've been studying and back at uni, so to speak, since October. So I've had less time for hobbying than I would like to have, and I've also had less time for playing games than I would like to have, but we all knew that this was going to happen, that the channel was going to go slightly on hiatus. However, not quite. And today I would like to show you a box. I'm not going to do an unboxing because this game has been unboxed so many times that I don't think that if I do an unboxing this is going to add anything to it. And sorry about the glare. It's one of the very, very lovely days here in Ireland that we've been having recently. There's a lot of sun outside my door. This game is a game that has been around for, I presume, about 4 to 5 years in its present incarnation. It's Descent: Journeys in the Dark, 2nd edition by Fantasy Flight Games. What I hold in my hands is the base set. Now this is a re-implementation of Descent: Journeys in the Dark 1st edition, which came in a huge coffin box, and I think that was published in the early noughties of this century. I also own the 1st edition, but I have to admit I never really played it because I read it and I'm like, oh my god, I'm never going to be able to get this on the table with my gaming group because it was really, you know, quite a complex game, and for me it lacked something. So instead I went for Wrath of Ashadalon, which is different but similar in some ways. Now Descent itself is set in the same universe as Runebound, so you're playing in a land called Terrenoth, and if you've played Runebound then some of the place names in Descent will sound familiar. But it's different from Runebound, at least Runebound 2nd edition. I've never seen Runebound 3rd edition. I've just heard that it's actually more player versus player oriented and very different from the 2nd edition, and I have no interest in that. So, Descent itself is a fantasy, miniature, almost skirmish-like game with a modular board. And in its base edition like this, it is geared towards at least 2 players. Now, how this game usually works is that you have one person who plays the Overlord, and this is the player who gets to control all of the monsters. And then you have 1 or up to 4, I believe, players who control the heroes. And the game is played in such a fashion that you have adventures that you can also string together in the form of a campaign, and the box will do that for you. You have the adventures, but you can also play the full campaign as it is laid out in the campaign book. And the Overlord will try to, first of all, beat the heroes and ensure that they cannot fulfill their objectives, and the heroes will try to beat the Overlord and ensure that he doesn't fulfill his objectives. And depending on how the games progress and how each individual encounter pans out, the campaign will take different paths thereafter. Because you can have, in theory, the heroes winning an encounter or the Overlord, and then depending on who wins most of the encounters in one area, apparently the subsequent encounters will be different. It's based in a fantasy world, so from a hero perspective you have the normal tropes and archetypes, like you have a fighter type, you have a healer type, you have a magician, magic user type, and you have the outdoorsy trapper, fights with a bow, finds stuff, tracker kind of person, TM, because obviously that is such an encompassing description that, you know, I have to trademark that one. So these are your archetypes, but then the game goes a lot deeper than that, because these archetypes you could also find in the D&D adventure board games. Each of these archetypes is divided into subclasses. So, for example, in the fighter area, you have the berserker. That's one I saw, and the knight. And there are more, but I've only seen these two. And then you would have things like a necromancer, a geomancer, I think is there as well. So you have different subclasses, and they come with different skills that are unique to this class. And unless you belong to this class, you cannot unlock those skills. And you can also get equipment. And as the game progresses, you earn gold, which allows you to buy better equipment. You can find treasure, which can also mean that you gain equipment or potions and stuff like that. But you also gain experience points. And in that regard, it's a lot like a role-playing game in that you track your experience points. And as you get more experience points, you can unlock further class skills. And the same also is true for the Overlord. While I don't think he has items as such, he does have classes that he can decide to specialize in. I think one is the Warlord, then there is the Magus class, and according to which class the Overlord decides to go into, he gets different cards that he can play when he's playing on his turn, or when he's playing and interfering with the player's turn. And he also gains experience points, which make it possible for him to upgrade and to level up and to become stronger. Because this game really deals with the idea of progression. You have the progression through the campaign and through the different encounters, but you also have a progression upwards for each of your characters, and also for the Overlord. You gain more experience, you gain better weapons, you gain better equipment, you gain better skills, or more interesting skills, or more powerful skills, as it were. But also the encounters get more difficult, and the monsters get more difficult, because the game is played in acts, and you have the Act 1 monsters, the Act 1, the Act 1 equipment deck, but you also have Act 2, where the monsters are more powerful, where the equipment is more powerful, so that you see this form of progression happening, and you really become better and better and more powerful as the game progresses. So it's got a lot of aspects of a role-playing game in there, which I find really, really appealing. As I've said, it's played on a modular board, so the board tiles look a lot like the ones from the Brimstone franchise, and you basically put the board together as you go through the encounter. So in that, it's a lot like Brimstone, it's a lot like the adventure, Dungeons and Dragons adventure games, board games, and I guess also a little bit like the Zombicide franchise, where you also have a modular board that you put together. Although I think in Zombicide you usually put it together at the beginning, whereas here you can actually put it together progressively. And if you play with the co-op versions, and I'm going to talk about those in a second, each encounter will be revealed as you go along, whereas if you play in the player versus player mode, it seems like you are instructed to set up the whole board to begin with, and then start walking through it. But I also believe that if you wanted to, you could set it up in a modular way. I don't know if this is possible, and if you can just say, okay, I'm going to reveal it room by room, or if you have to set it up just for even the benefit of the players to be able to do more strategizing. Now, I've already pointed out that out of the box, this game is meant to be played by at least 2 players who play opposed. So you will be wondering, how are you going to play this then? Because you play games solo. That is true. Now, Descent, out of the box, can be played solo, either by you trying to be really schizophrenic and going, okay, now I'm in the Overlord mode and I'm going to forget anything that the heroes might be planning, and when I switch over to the heroes, I will be forgetting anything that I was thinking about when I was the Overlord. It does work for me sometimes. I've never tried it with this game. It could maybe work or maybe not. But on Board Game Geek, there is a user mod which actually automates the Overlord, and apparently this one is really, really good. I've downloaded it. I haven't even looked at it yet, but I've seen it played on YouTube. It's a really good game. But Fantasy Flight Games has obviously caught on to the fact that a lot of their games, or a lot of games in general, are played either completely cooperatively because people may not be enjoying this player versus player mode. And I have to say, I played this once and I was the overlord and I felt terrible. You know, I was trying to thwart my friends and I found it really difficult to step out of this, oh, but I'm playing with my friends, into, oh, I'm the overlord and I'm playing against their, I'm playing against their heroes. I'm not playing against my friends, I'm playing against their heroes. I found that really difficult and I really had a very hard time because, you know, I had to kill them and I had to throw foes at them, and I found that really difficult. I mean, I've said this before, I also don't like GMing because of that, because I like to play with people rather than against people. So there are 3 small expansions which are also on the way at the moment. I'm waiting for them to arrive, that you can use to play cooperatively completely, and you can either play on your own against the game or you can play with friends against the game. So the overlord is taken out completely and replaced with cards. And you can see playthroughs of one of those adventures, namely the Forgotten Souls one on YouTube. Catweasel has done one, but I think it's the one where his party dies, he doesn't get through to the end. Sola McLaughlin did one, but she also stopped after the first act, I guess. And Tina, the board gamer, also does one, but she also stops at the end of the first act. So you would get a good idea of how it's played without getting spoilers for the whole adventure. Then there's Nature's Ire, and then there's Dark Elements. So these are 3 co-op adventures that have come out over the years. And this year, Fantasy Flight Games has added an app. And this app actually takes away the Dungeon Master completely as well. And you can play using the app and play against the app. So the monsters are, and also the events are governed by the app. And how this works is you go into the app, you download it, it's free on Steam, and the first 2 adventures are also completely free, and I think the 3rd one has now been released and it's $4.99, and that's really not very expensive. $4.99 so €5, five whatever. And the way this works is you go into the app and you explain to, or you choose and select which expansions for Descent you have. You always have to have the board game, the base game, because the cards are not reproduced by the app. You will have to dig them out. You will have to use them offline, as it were. So you will always have a board as well. But depending on which expansions you have, the app will add the content of those expansions to the app Play. And then you can use those monsters, and you can use those tiles, and you can use those heroes, and you can use those cards, as it were. So, and I've seen that played too. Catweasel did a playthrough of the first campaign, I think it's called Rise of All the Goblins, and it's fantastic. I'm not a friend of app play when it comes to board games, because there's a reason why I play board games, and that is because I don't want to play computer games anymore, because I spend so much time in front of the computer that it doesn't really appeal to me anymore to be doing this in my spare time as well. So I'm always a bit wary when it comes to apps. And I've seen the 2nd edition Mansions of Madness app, and I've seen it played, but I'm not sure. It's so app-centric that I don't think I would want to do it. I would want to play it. But this one, there the app is really just a small part of the gameplay. And I've seen it played and it works. And I will play this today, because obviously I only have the base game, because I'm still waiting for everything else to come by post. So I can't really play this by myself unless I wanted to do the solo version of the Overlord and the Automated Overlord, but I don't feel like doing this today. I don't have that much time, and I don't have that much headspace at the moment to concentrate on this, because I have to travel tomorrow for a week, almost a week, on business, and I have to finish stuff, and so I don't have that much time. So what I will do is I will open up this box, and then I will look at the app, and then I will probably play the first scenario, well, or parts of the first scenario, Rise of All the Goblins, because the good thing is in the app you can actually save where you're at, so it will remember who your heroes are, what kind of stuff those heroes have, and where you are in the adventure. So that's really good as well. So that's all from my side for today. I just wanted to give you a brief update on where I am with my gaming. Oh yeah, and by the way, of course, I have been doing some hobbying. This is a stand for all of my paints. So I've just glued it together, and it's now drying out. I use PVA glue for this. Yeah, I have been doing some hobbying as well. So that's all for me now. I'll be traveling on business, so I will not be online for a good week or so. If you're interested in Descent and you would like to see it played, because you don't know if it's a game for you or not, I can recommend the following channels. Tina the Board Gamer, Catweasel, and Sola McLaughlin do playthroughs of parts of Forgotten Souls, which is the co-op version. Catweasel, in addition, does a playthrough of the first campaign from the app, Road to Legend. Crits Happen do a really good playthrough of the first two, and this is soloed. This guy completely solos, playing the Overlord and the heroes of the first two adventures in the campaign. I think it's the Prelude or whatever it's called, and then Castle Dorian. And then we have Black Belt Gaming, who did a playthrough of a couple of scenarios of the campaign, and he did it really in a very interesting and lovely way. He actually played by forum, so he basically had 4 people on Facebook, and they had the different heroes, and they were basically telling him what their heroes were going to do, and he then basically played it out in front of the camera. It was done in 2013, which I'm very happy about, because if I'd had to watch it live, I would probably have been sitting there kind of going, where's an update, where's an update, where's an update, because it is very, very thrilling. He did it really well, and it was really, it's a long game. I think it's 48 episodes, but it gives you a really good idea of gameplay. So go to those if you would like to see it played, and if you'd like to get an impression of how the game plays, and the different types of play that there are. Overlord against heroes without the heroes knowing what's going on, because they're different people. The co-op version, and then an Overlord / heroes schizophrenic approach. So I'll talk to you soon. Have a lovely weekend, and yeah, nice November weather, hopefully, to everyone. We've been having a really, really good November so far, so I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.